In the near future, Earth goes through a natural breakdown after humans go excessively far with their experiment on genetics changed substances. Engineered viruses and life forms escape into the wild and crash edible plants, all creatures, and a large piece of the human population. An government currently flourishes in encased cities called citadels while every other person struggles to survive. Also, to secure food, these individuals depend on seeds traded by the citadels that are coded to produce just a single harvest. Among these survivalists is Vesper, a 13-year-old young lady that lives with her paralyzed dad Darius. To keep his girl company and have the option to chat with her, his mind has been installed into a drone that follow her around. Vesper is an extremely brilliant youngster. Not just she goes out to scrounge consistently. She has some science and biohacking information that permits her to utilize the plants and bugs she finds in the research she checked at an abandoned lab in the area. She's additionally the one keeping her dad alive by keeping up with the machine he's associated to. Darius is extremely protective of his girl and could do without it when she talks about seeing as an approach to moving away or following a pilgrims, wandering for no specific reason just to see where they go. One evening, Vesper gets back to find they've been looted and the generator that power the entire house, including Darius' machine, has been subverted. If she has any desire to keep her dad alive, she has no choice except for to go to a close-by farm and request help. When she arrives, she figures out they're experiencing difficulty with their Jug, a genetically made human being void of insight utilized for physical labor. The Jug got injured while working and now is futile, so leader Jonas, who is Darius' sibling, orders the kid that was accountable for it to put the creature out of its hopelessness. Jonas swears it can't feel a thing since it was made in a lab, but, as the kid kills it, the creature retaliates and cries. When this upsetting show is finished, Vesper approaches Jonas to request a bacteria to control the generator once more, offering a blood gift in return. Blood is important since Jonas utilizes it to purchase seeds from the citadels. However, Vesper possibly comes to give when she has a crisis. When she grows up, her blood will not be valuable any longer, which is the motivation behind why Jonas believes that her should come to live with them, promising to take care with her father as well. Vesper declines however since she realizes he needs to make her one of his reproducers and he's always incredibly creepy, in which he brings up the amount she seems to be her mother, who left them a year prior. When the donation is finished, Jonas won't pay Vesper with the comparing bacteria, explaining he first want to sell the blood and that it will take a couple of days. Darius will not survive that long without the machine and an enraged Vesper attempts to take her blood back. However, Jonas gets her and throws her out. Not ready to surrender, Vesper returns minutes after and slips into the farm through a hole vacillating just she knows about. Jonas' associate sees her however chooses not to squeal on her, so Vesper break into Jonas' lab and take the bacteria she's owed. While in there, she likewise takes the risk to steal a portion of the seeds Jonas has gotten from the citadels. Discussing of the citadel, while Vesper is coming back, she can't resist see one of the citadel's gliders flying lower than expected. At home, Vesper fixes the generator prior to getting to work on the seeds, trusting she can make them rich and such knowledge will get her a spot in the citadel. Darius attempts to explain that they won't ever accept her regardless of how smart she is, hurting Vesper and making her take off from the house in tears. While running through the forest, she's stunned to find the body of Camellia, a lady whose clothes show she comes from the citadel. She might be oblivious yet she's as yet alive no matter what every one of the plants right now benefiting from her, so Vesper pushes every one of the organisms away and hauls Camellia home, where she deals with the injuries by utilizing a synthetic patch she's made herself. Later at night, Camellia awakens and hears Vesper and Darius quarreling about how to manage her. Vesper thinks she could take them to the citadel, however Darius has zero faith in her and figures they ought to leave her to die in the forest. Stressed and frightened, Camellia takes a knife from the kitchen and stows away it under her pillow before Vesper comes to keep an eye on her. When asked, Camellia affirms that the glider flyer Vesper saw yesterday crashed and she was in it. Her dad was in there as well, however they got isolated and presently she wants to track down him. Camellia isn't as yet adequately well to walk yet guarantees a reward for their assistance, hence Vesper accepts to look for her dad in the forest regardless of whether Darius doesn't endorse. Over supper, Camellia discovers that Darius got injured while serving the Citadel army and all they gave him was the drone, which is the reason he has no faith in them. When unexpectedly Darius starts to have a seizure, Camellia helps by giving him a kiss, which quickly makes him sleep. The following morning, Vesper starts her hunt and rapidly tracks down the glider with Camelia's dad Elias in it. Sadly, she isn't the final straggler. Jonas and a group of survivalists show up to check the accident as well. Jonas approaches Elias and ignores his sobs for help, rather to kill him for being from the Citadel. When Vesper attempts to stop him, Jonas simply drives her away. Since he gets dubious over her motivations to care about the stranger, he likewise views as a lady's scarf inside the glider, demonstrating there's another pilgrims they need to find. A while later, Darius recommends Vesper tell Camellia they don't found anything and tell the Citadel before Camellia does anything rash or Jonas finds her. yet the just handset is at Jonas' home. When they get back, Vesper deceives Camellia and vows to continue to search for her dad the following day. Her injuries are improving thanks to Vesper's synthetic patches, and since Camellia is so intrigued by it, Vesper chooses to believe her and show her mysterious nursery where she keeps every one of the plants she's bioengineered herself. They all have various capacities and characters. Also, Vesper is glad for them all. However, she actually wishes to find the right creative to produce palatable seeds. While Vesper is occupied by one of the plants, Darius approaches Camellia and says he knows it's impossible that she can take them to a citadel, yet she ought to be caring because Vesper believes her and this fantasy is everything to her. When they get back, Camellia inquires Vesper about her mother, who left a year prior to join the Pilgrims after she lost her voice. Pilgrims are people that travel in bunches with shroud over their faces scavenging. However, no one knows why since they don't talk. A few bits of gossip say that it's a virus that makes them pilgrims, which would mean Vesper's mother didn't have a decision. After Camellia admits she never met her own mom, Vesper draws out a book with illustrations of animals she never got to see yet Camellia did, so she shares her experience and shows Vesper the clamors they make, knowing that the Citadel can keep real animals. Vesper asks why the survivalists aren't permitted to live there as well. Also, Camellia explains the greater up stress that opening their doors would rise to not having enough assets. Vesper thinks they could do the most terrible jobs as opposed to making jugs for it. Yet Camellia calls attention to the Citadel likes control and jugs don't retaliate back to people. Subsequently, Vesper brings her mom's old instrument and will sing while Camellia plays it. The following day, Vesper slips into Jonas' home again to attempt to utilize the handset. However, this time Jonas sees Darius' drone catches it. While claiming to fix it, Jonas informs Vesper concerning his missing seeds and the secret of the missing passenger prior to calling attention to he could do without liars, particularly when they're his own loved ones. Refusing to confess, Vesper gets the drone and takes off, just to find the drone can't fly and it falls when it attempts to take off. While attempting to recover the drone, Vesper tracks down a body under a tree. It's Jonas' colleague, who was left there to die, before she can contemplate whether he was killed for assisting her. A lot of Jonas' followers arrive what's more, push Vesper to the ground where they hold her down to put a seal on her hand, making her as Jonas' property. When she gets back, Vesper has a breakdown and Camellia makes sure to solace her, causing her to feel terrible for her untruths and making her admit Elias is dead. To demonstrate it, Vesper takes Camellia to see the body, which is floating in the river. Presently it's Camelia's turn to have a breakdown as she cries and grips to her dad, so Vesper needs to drag her out of the stream before she suffocates. While holding her, Vesper sees an odd scar on Camelia's back that reacts when she contacts it. It turns out Camellia is an incredibly progressed jug made by Elias, who had been removed from the Citadel for making a savvy slave. Camellia lied as well. She would have always been unable to get Vesper and her father into the Citadel since she had been on the run. Angry, Vesper hits her before they get back, where she advises Camilla to leave after she gets tidied up. Then, Vesper at last fixes the drone, and after she lets her father what occurred, Darius asks her not to be difficult for Camellia since jugs can follow orders and she has limited options. Meantime, Camellia gets the tools in order to end things before the Citadel can track her. However, Darius' words have adjusted Vesper's perspective and she shows up with perfect timing to stop her. Since Camellia feels as she doesn't have a purpose any longer, Vesper offers to take an example from her. That way Camelia's cells can be valuable for her research. Obviously this is more easier than one might expect since very much like with the seeds, Camelia's cells are locked also. Seeing how disappointed Vesper, Camellia chooses to play for her since Elias used to say music assisted him with concentrating. This ends up being smart idea because Camelia's music opens her cells and Vesper can at last alter the Citadel's seeds and make them ripe, so they will not go hungry in the future. To gain more headway, Vesper will require more filters, for which she makes a speedy outing to the old lab with the drone to assemble more tools. Meantime, Camellia remains at home watching over Darius' body, and that implies Jonas finds her when he approaches over check on his niece. At first Camellia plays the honest card, however Jonas is onto her and takes steps to kill Darius, causing Camellia to accept to go with him easily. Anyway, when she pivots, Jonas sees the imprint on her back and supposes she's a jug, so he pushes her against the table to attempt to reinvent her cells and cause her to accept him as her new master. At that point, Vesper returns what's more, pushes him away, setting off a fight that the drone and Camellia likewise join. With their consolidated endeavors, they overwhelm Jonas, yet Vesper will not kill him. Rather, she offers a deal if Jonas doesn't call the Citadel on him. Vesper will share the way to opening the seeds so that he can feed his kin. Jonas professes to accept, yet when he returns to the farm, he calls the Citadel at any rate and lets them know where to track down the fugitive's jug. When sun sets, Vesper has wrapped up opening the first batch of seeds. However, tragically there's no way to celebrate. Darius' drone distinguishes a presence outside, and that implies the Citadel has tracked them. An engineered organism unexpectedly goes into the house through each crevice. Fortunately, Darius remembers it from his army days and cautions Vesper and Camellia not to breathe until the poison is finished. A short time later, Camellia needs to hand herself over to save them. Yet Darius doesn't let her, since they will still come after Vesper only for aiding her. Rather, he offers to divert the soldiers while they took off. Vesper would rather not abandon him. So Darius persuades her to hide close by and that she can return after he lets the soldiers know that there's no jug there, since he knows how to talk to fellow army men. When the soldiers at last show up, first they stop at Jonas' farm to kill him, also his group, then they come to Darius' place, where Vesper takes care of everything up to make it look deserted prior to taking the seeds with her to stow away with Camellia in the forests. Darius has no trust that the soldiers will stand by listening to an elderly person like him and doesn't attempt to talk with them. His real plan from the start has been to fall to pieces the drone and bring the soldiers down with him. In the forest, Vesper sees the blast and attempts to run back to help her dad, but Camellia stops her before she goes too far, since there's nothing they can do any longer. To make the situation worse, there are 2 soldiers that survived the blast and are coming after them. So Vesper guides Camellia through the swamp, realizing there are perilous plants there that can kill their enemies. The first soldier actually falls into this trap and rapidly dies, but the subsequent one sees this and figures out how to stay away from the plant. Vesper and Camellia tumble to their knees to sneak around while remaining taken cover behind the shrubs. Yet sadly, another plant makes a noise when it sees them and cautions the soldiers of their area. As the man draws nearer, Vesper, what's more, Camellia conclude a fence is the best defense and bounce on him, rapidly taking his weapon and hitting him until he walk into the trap zone and the plant kills him. A sound somewhere far off shows more gliders are coming, and Camellia realize they'll chase constantly her, which implies Vesper and the seeds won't ever be safe with her around. Vesper can tell she's preparation something and attempts to protest, yet Camellia put her to sleep with a kiss and hide her body under fallen leaves prior to giving up to the soldiers. The following morning, Vesper awakens and goes to her house, yet it's burned to the ground. After planting some of the open seeds in her old nursery, she comes across a group of children that survived the attack on Jonas' farm, and together they start traveling by following the pilgrims to find where they go. The objective ends up being an immense tower that the pilgrim have been working with the pieces they've scrounged. Vesper doesn't hold back to climb the tower, and when she comes to the top, she opens her hand to allow the wind to take away the seeds to various corners of the land. That way they can develop and increase for everybody. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.